with the success that Americans are having on the world stage now. In the late 90s, it didn't look like that. It didn't look like we could compete. And there were people that said we would never be able to compete at that level, that we were never going to be able to be there again in the Olympic Games. And that all started to change. And you're right, when Bob broke 13, I think a lot of people started to say, if he can do it, then I can do it. Dathan runs 12:56. And I think that's why a lot of people point to that 2000 race. And obviously that's our number one most legendary race, because what it really did is it set the tone. And so many of the people in that race went on to be Olympians and champions and set records one right after another. So the 2000 race is our number one race. And we're going to watch that video. It's going to run for a little while. So Dathan, obviously is the winner at 14:35. But in that race, ran 9:18 for the last 2 miles of that race. So it really pushed it. And then, as we mentioned, went on to run 12:56. Then Alan was second. Went on to run 3:53 that year. Ryan was third. Went on to set the American record at the half marathon, all that. And so, guys, as we watch this race, your memories as we go through, and let's kind of start with this. Were you all aware of the significance of that race, or were you just looking to get to another race? Dathan, what did you remember coming in? You were the defending champ.
Yeah, I had really upped my training an amazing amount. I mean, I was running 100 miles a week, and I felt bulletproof. I felt invincible all year long, and I kind of felt like I was going to come out and make this big statement. But honestly, over the course of the last week or so, like, my confidence started to erode a little bit, and Alan ran really well at his regional, and I guess I had to rely on the training and just trust myself, and I trusted my coach. He gave me a completely different race plan than we had originally figured, and I sat back early on. It was the first race in a year that I hadn't just gone to the front and pushed, and honestly, I think there's a lot of built up energy for me. And when I hit the mile mark, we decided to go, and it was just complete focus. See what you can do. How far can you empty the tank? And I guess I just there was that gun is like the release of the emotions of the nervousness that you're holding on to. Everybody has that fear. Like even the best in the world have doubts, and I did for sure that day. So it was something else to be able to get out there and finally have the gun go off and be like, all right, it's time to stick to the race plan and let's go.
Maybe Ryan Hall to take that lead. Here's a look.
Ryan, just talking about you right there, going into that race. Now you came from some hilly regional course, or very hilly regional course. This was flat. Were you prepared to go out that hard, or did you want to stay in the group? What was your plan?
First and third.
Yeah, no. Everyone was expecting Dathan to go out. I didn't know the backstory behind his coach throwing that curveball at us, but that totally worked. Everyone was like, man, he goes out every single race. He's going to set a hard pace. So we're all watching Dathan. We're like, he's just going to get after it. And so, you can see me kind of sitting. You can't even see me there, but I'm back in the pack and just keeping an eye on Dathan. But I was sitting too far back. And my confidence was also kind of a little bit rocky going into that one. I hadn't lost a race on a Mount Sat course in Southern California my entire career, and I lost that regional race, and that kind of got in my head a little bit, and I was a little bit shaky going into this one as well. And then you're facing Dathan and Alan, and I knew I had a supreme challenge on my hands, and just wasn't good positioning on my part in this race, and Dathan just blew the doors off those last 2 miles.
Alan, were you ready for that move at the mile when he made it?
No, not at the mile. No, I was not ready for the move that early. I will say during the first mile, I remember thinking to myself, "Wow, if they really wait this long, then if they keep waiting at this pace, then my confidence was good at that point." But I would like to know Dathan's middle mile. I mean, you quoted last 2 miles, but it really ended after about 1,000 meters from the mile through, because I tried to go with him, and you can kind of see me try to go, but I was pretty much gassed at probably about 1,000. I mean, you could actually even look at my turnover was probably higher than Dathan's, because I was pretty much running my mile in the middle of that race, and then the race was over already before we even got to 2 miles. I was destroyed. I luckily enough, I latched on and got enough of a lead over Ryan to basically hold on for dear life through the last mile, because I remember coming around that final straightaway and you can see Ryan starting to catch me, and I was hanging on by a thread at that point because of that move from a mile that Dathan put in. Man, Dathan, that was well played, man.
I think that's interesting though, Alan and Ryan, when you have Dathan out there in front, who you knew obviously was good. But for some of these athletes that are coming to Foot Locker and they are the best in their state, or they're the best in their county, or they're the best on their team, and they have people that are pushing the race in spots where they normally go. I just think it's so important for us athletes to be able to relay that back to these athletes. How do you stay in the game when someone isn't playing the game that you're used to?
I think a lot. Oh, go ahead, Dathan.
No, go for it.
I was gonna say, I think a lot for me is how you look at your competitors, right? So if you look at them as like people that you're just trying to beat, then when they're doing stuff that's not what you planned on, it really gets in your head, right? And it rattles you. It can start you on a downward path mentally, and then things don't go well. Whereas like if you're able to look at your competitors as people who are actually trying to pull you along, trying to make you run faster, and your goal is to let them pull you along, but also to make them run faster, then I think they can do whatever they want, and you can just look at them up in front of you and just be like, it's all right, they're just pulling me along, and this is going to make me better, and my goal is to make them better. It totally changes what's going on inside of you, and you go from like getting negative and down to being able to reframe it in a positive light. And I think that's a big part of being successful in racing, is just, can you be out there, can you roll with the punches and reframe negative things or things that look negative in a positive light.
Dathan, do you know what that middle mile was? Do you remember?
I was looking for a clock. I guess it said 4:40 when we went by 1 mile, but I don't remember, all I remember is, I just thought, let's just see what I have right now. Like everything I got right now, and I can survive the last mile. And it was, we practiced it. We blew the whistle. The coach would blow the whistle, and I would just run as hard as I could until he blew the whistle again, and I wouldn't know when it would be. And that was what we practiced. And I just lean into any hill, lean into any turn. Just keep going. Don't ever stop. And it got slower. Honestly, my last mile was definitely way slower because I was completely gassed out. But I came into the home stretch there, and I really had nothing left anymore. I was kind of going backwards myself, but I just thought, what can I do this middle mile? Can anybody else go with this? We'll just see what's in the tank. And so I just pressed, and I think it was probably pretty ugly the last 100 meters actually.
Somebody just texted me that middle mile was 4:33.
Yeah, and it was a very, very twisty, windy, bumpy thing, and it just lean into every turn, and it was pretty much everything I could muster.
Wow. Hey, Alan, you deserve a lot of credit. You really gave it an effort though to go with him there. It cost you. You can tell how tired you look here in this last mile, but that's pretty impressive that you went with him there in that mile when he made that break.
Ryan Hall in third. The big three.
I was trying. I was trying.
I know we're probably running out of time. I'll just jump in. I haven't watched this race in forever, and I just love watching it. For young athletes, tactics and execution and adaptability, like Ryan was talking, that's everything. Right? Coach Bell at Indiana used to say to us all the time, you cannot expect to do something in a race that you don't do in training. And when Dathan talked about they practiced changing pace and going until the next whistle. That's not an accident, right? And so I think as you prepare and train, you can't do it blindly. And this is just the result of that preparation. And to me, that makes this race even more exciting when I hear those things.
It's just as great as the first time. I mean, I never felt anything like this at Foot Locker and Adidas put on such a big meet. It feels like the Olympics or something. And to win it with these great guys in the comeback of distance running, and I think that it just feels awesome.
Whatever you're doing in training should be preparation for racing. That's what we're doing. Yes, we're all trying to be healthy and we want to be fit. And maybe that's something that we take on for the rest of our lives, to be fit. But yes, you're practicing for the race. And so whatever you should be doing in training, you should be expected to do in the race and nothing more. So you really do need to make sure that you're focusing that every single day, focusing in on that training. That's what's going to give you the confidence for the race.
By the way, you guys are both wearing sweet spikes in that race too.
We'd be remiss to not mention the girls' champion in that race that year. Ryan, who was that woman that was holding that trophy there a second ago? Oh, Ryan, you're still muted there. Yeah, let's get Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Sarah Bay. Luckily, she's a forgiving person because I wasn't in the best mood after that race.
Here you go. It was interesting what you said about enjoying the moment. I think one of the things that we all remember about Sarah so much is her junior when she didn't qualify, how gracious she was at the regional. She didn't go out and sob, didn't sulk, came back, took pictures with everybody, and then came back and won the national championship. I think a lot of us were just delighted that she was able to do that. And it was a class move, to say the least.
Yeah, that was actually the first thing I heard about Sarah. That was like my introduction to Sarah Bay was my dad reading the article about how she didn't pout after she didn't qualify for Foot Locker Nationals during her junior year. And he's like, hey, like he was pointed out to me as like, you need to be like this. You need to take a lesson from this, because he knows like I tended to be a poor sport when I lose. And so Sarah's been inspiring me since day one. And yeah, she's one of a kind for sure.
Mickey, you see, dads know what's best there. All right. Well, hey, we want to thank you all so much. This has been so much fun.